showtime here. We'll see if Death and Taxes can beat Miracles in just a moment. Philip Schonecker. Joe's got a fan. Joe.
I mean, to be fair, one
so
of them's his friend, and the other one's a guy playing the same deck that you play.
That is so good.
You know, Joe already converting some of Marc's team.
Both with 1-mana artifacts to start things off. A Vial on Marc's side, a Top on Joe's side. For those of you guys who don't know, Philip Schonecker, top 4 Grand Prix New Jersey, top 16 here this weekend with Miracles. He's a huge advocate for the deck, one of the best Miracle players in the world. Prefers Ponder to Joe's style, but they both have similar success with the archetype.
Yeah, one advantage here is that Marc got a turn 1 Aether Vial. Does neutralize some of the counter spells that come out of Lossett's deck, and helps really mitigate Terminus because he can end step creatures.
Marc deciding what he wants to search for. He's going to go with a Sword of Fire and Ice, preferring that over Jite and a Batterskull. So he'll shuffle up and send it back Lossette's way in just a moment here. You see the vials on 1. There's the sword.
Yeah, and I do think there's some pressure on Joe here to establish a countertop lock or get an early entreat. A lot of his removal is somewhat situational. You see things like Counterspell, Pyroblast, of course. Cards like Spell Pierce, they're not actually that great in this matchup. They don't interact well with white creatures. Obviously, cards like Terminus are just fantastic. But he does want to close out the game because his strategy was sitting back and 1-for-1ing. A lot of times he can get blanked there.
Saw Joe spin his top on the upkeep. Make sure he drew a good card. There's a Scalding Tarn. And looks like peel a card with top. There's that. Sack this. Somebody's got another top to play.
Yeah, Joe has a second top here. Oh. Liked the card he had on top of his deck, so converts Divining Top into a different card.
So there that is. Vial, in comes Mother of Runes. We think.
Making Joe decide first before showing whether or not he has Mother Runes. A lot of times, even if he doesn't have a Mother Runes, they'll just tap the Vial on end step anyway.
Yeah, we watched Craig Wesco do that a lot last weekend. Very skilled Death and Taxes players. Vials up 2 here for Konig.
It's interesting. So with a player like Craig Wesco, you get someone who's just a white aggro player across the board. Kind of not a huge, Legacy is one of the many formats he plays, whereas then you get players like Marc who are just, they play Death and Taxes.
The reason for the activation of the Stoneforge Mystic on his own turn, which is something I actually like a lot, is because sometimes you'll see where if you wait to activate it, that's when you get blown up by Vendilion Click. So I actually like this a lot because if his plan is to put it into play and he has no other plans with this mana, then just put it into play.
Yeah, play it on main phase. Joe plays 3 copies of Vendilion Click in the main.
Yeah. Flooded Strands of Land, pass the turn back. Nothing to put in with the Vial. Konig will draw a card.
Yeah, so Konig has not really dealt too much damage yet. This equip is going to be his first real threat. We'll see how Joe reacts to it, whether or not he can find a Swords to Plowshares. Certainly he doesn't want to actually take a hit off Sword of Fire and Ice if he can help it at all.
Yeah, Swords of Plowshares is covered up pretty well by Mother of Runes, so a card like Terminus might actually have to come off here for Joe now. And Joe sacrificing a Flooded Strand, I wouldn't be surprised if it was for basic Plains, which is going to show up, because again, searching for a Tundra against this deck that has Wasteland along with Rishadenport is a little bit risky. So we're just going to get the basic land, probably spin the top with an island and see if he can find a copy of Terminus.
And this is what Death and Taxes can do really well, set up one good threat and protect it, and while being very disruptive in this matchup. So you see, once he gets a sword on Stoneforge Mystic, he can kind of force Joe to have a card like Terminus. Said Swords to Plowshares don't work very well here. Marc, once he starts drawing extra cards, will start to do things like Wasteland, like Rishadenport.
Yeah, like Terminus, to clear everything up. Vial, what is this? Ooh. Ooh, ooh. Whew. Whew, whew, whew. That is gorgeous.
So yeah, going through what happened here is that Joe only had 1 mana open. So part of Miracle is when you draw the card, there's a trigger that lets you cast it for its Miracle cost. With that trigger on the stack, Marc Vialed a Thalia into play, which means that Joe would have had to pay white colorless to resolve the Terminus. He only had 1 mana, which not only means he can't play Terminus, but he has to draw the card, which means it's not on top of his deck anymore.
That also means that to redeploy the top, he has to pay 2 mana, which is just a beating all the way around.
Yeah, it
That was such a good play.
took 5 off Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah. That was really nice.
Absolutely. So now it's going to take some. He does have a Brainstorm in hand, but Thalia's in play. Everything costs so much more. Joe should still be able to reset in time before he dies, at least, to get this Terminus going. But it's going to take a lot of damage, and it's going to be a lot of cards for Marc.
Caracas bounces the Thalia. Now it's a 1-mana Brainstorm, so draw 3 cards, put 2 back. You have to imagine that we're going to see Terminus placed back in some capacity.
Yeah, but it might have to be second from the top. If he just plays Divining Top, the exact same thing's going to happen again.
There's this. That's done resolving. Well, he's already played a land for the turn, so he can't play the Flooded Strand. So
Yeah.
he played Caracas.
Has already played a land. It's
So,
the Flooded,
it's the
Flooded Strand was the
Yeah,
one.
There we go.
And that actually really does change things, because now he can't just play. He can't play the top and have 2 up. He can't pay for Thalia.
So there's that. Pass the turn back. We're going back Konig's way. This is going to go up to 3, so that's Flickerwisp territory. There's also Burmaz and Mirran Crusader as far as 3-mana spells are concerned.
So the moment Marc puts it up to 3, it's a window, right, where Joe could Terminus if he wanted to tap the Divining Top.
But he won't.
And we'll see how he chooses to do things here. It looks like Thalia will just get played again.
Yeah, Thalia with Caracas in play. It's basically a free roll.
Yeah, it does leave up Caracas, so that if Joe goes for the Terminus, which we expect him to do, then he'll be able to save his own creature.
Yeah, I like this play a lot. Was that already down to 8? Those sword hits do add up. Saw him spin the top, and now he's going to draw a card here, and I have a feeling it's going to be Terminus, yeah?
Still is. There's a chance that he was going to try to do it on Konig's turn. But nope, goes for it main phase here. He's going to have to pay 2. Uses his Caracas here, protecting himself from Wasteland.
Konig will pick up his Thalia.
And this is the thing, if Konig has a 3-drop, this doesn't even change the clock by very much.
Yep.
He can put a 3-drop in on end step, put Sword of Fire and Ice on it, and Joe is almost at lethal again.
Marc is thinking maybe I'm supposed to vial something in now, or if I just let the resolve. He's going to let that resolve. Terminus is going to put 2 creatures at the bottom. There's a land. There's a Flooded Strand. Activate. Crack this in response.
This is an aggressive play from Joe. And I like it because he's far behind, so he needs to hit some value here. He's going to Vendilion Click in response to the Aether Vial. The hope is that Konig just has 1 3-drop. If he does, he will blank this Aether Vial activation. And
two flicker was good try, buddy.
See if he wants to take one of them, give Konig a new card, or if he just lets him have them both.
A pretty casual match down there between these two players, and the players that are watching too. There was an audible laughter among everyone down there in the feature match area after Marc showed him the 2 Flicker Wisp.
This is actually lethal. So he puts a Flicker Wisp into play, puts Sword of Fire and Ice on it. It has protection from blue as a 5/3, swings at Joe and deals 2 damage off the trigger. That's 7.
Yeah, as long as Marc sees it, and I would be very surprised if he doesn't. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean he has to put a creature into play.
Yep.
So wait, I should put this equipment on my guy.
Yep. Marc Konig's going to win game number 1 here over Joe Lossett. Death and Taxes up a game over Miracles. As those players are going to head to the sideboard, we're going to come back to the booth because it is time for trivia one last time this weekend. It's the 12-monther. He's got the rules. I've got your very difficult question.
All right, well, this is going to be just like we've had it before. So if you've been watching the whole broadcast, you know the rules. But if you just joined us, hop over onto Twitter and follow the event here. At SCG Live is our Twitter handle. And Cedric's going to ask you a question. If you believe you know the answer, tweet at us at SCG Live. Make sure you put the hashtag SCG Premium. You see it on the bottom of your screen. Have it on your tweet. And if your answer is correct at the end of the finals, you may be selected for a year's worth of SCG Premium over on our website.
We made some changes to organized play for 2015 for next year. The Open Series events are now 2 days, $20,000. The question is, what does first place win for an Open Series event next year during 2015? How much Money. How much money? Johnny
What's on
Football
the line?
money. Yeah. What do you get for first place? That's the question. Hashtag your answer with the hashtag SCG Premium, as it has increased quite a bit. Make sure you're following at SCG Live, and we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our finals match, which currently Marc Konig is up a game with Death and Taxes.
Just doesn't lose any games. Doesn't
I
lose
guess
matches, doesn't lose games.
I swear, every time I bet against Death and Taxes, just assume that I'm wrong, because every time I'm just like, well, it's playing against Miracles. The deck has Terminus and all these things. And the Terminus blowout that game was fantastic.
Looked at the top
Thalia,
eight.
Thalia.
And I remember you're like, hey, well, who do you think's going to win this top eight? And you're like,
Yeah.
this is pretty hard top eight for Death and Taxes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that means it's probably going to win if we're saying that.
Yeah, this is just how things go every time. Every time we just like, well, I don't know if Death and Taxes can beat this matchup. It's like, well, it just messes with the opponent just enough, beats lands,
Sure.
beats Friedman playing his like Jeskai Stoneblade deck that had counterbalance in top, and now he's up a game against the deck that has 4 copies of Terminus and Swords of Plowshares and Pyroclasms after sideboard, as you guys will see as we head back down to the match. So Joe's got a Needle, 2 Baneslayer Angels. Like that card's good against Death and Taxes, but Marc will probably find a way to beat it. Containment Priest, Counterspell, 2 Fluster Storms, a Hydro Blast, 2 Red Blast, Wear Tear, Venser, Jace, and the 2 Pyroclasms that we mentioned.
All right, let's start with some of the things that he can use. The 2 Pyroclasms, you said they are great in this matchup. Pithing Needle, not the worst. There's cards like Aether Vial, Mother of Runes can be problematic for the Miracles deck. Imagine he'll bring that one in. Containment Priest, interesting. It does stop Aether Vial. I'm not sure if it's good enough in the rest of the matchup to board in, but we'll see whether or not he uses it. Outside of that, a lot of his things are pretty color-specific answers. You know, you see things like Hydro Blast, Red Elemental Blast. None of those work very well here. A big question, though, Baneslayer Angel. Is this a matchup where he wants to use it? It certainly is hard for a Death and Taxes deck to deal with. I mean, he doesn't want to keep in his Swords to Plowshares here. That said, Death and Taxes is also on the Wasteland, Rashad, and Port plan. 5 is a lot of mana.
Bring it in. Give it to me. This is the second
You just
match
want
in
to
a row.
see it.
Yeah, I just want to see him cast it. Mostly because every time Patrick tells me about when he played against Joe, and obviously Patrick was playing Burn and Joe played a Baneslayer Angel, Patrick's like, all right, you win. That's it. Just concede. The game is over. I cannot beat this, obviously.
Sulfuric Vortex right now. Right.
Yeah. Grafdigger's Cage, Needle, Ratchet Bomb, 2 copies of this one, Canonist, a Containment Priest, an Absolute Law, a Copper Red. Rest in peace, 2 Enlightened Tutors for the whole package, along with 2 Gut Shots, a Cataclysm, and a Council's Judgment. I actually expect to see Cataclysm and Council's Judgment come in here, among other pretty good options, but I think those are the easiest places to start. Needle, too.
I agree. Cataclysm, Council's Judgment are both very good here. Marc just becomes more disruptive after board here, if anything. So even something like Ratchet Bomb might not be terrible if it gets a counterbalance off the board, but you're right. Pithing Needle's pretty good here. It gets rid of stops Divining Top, Cataclysm, Council's Judgment. Those are all pretty good. If he's really worried about Pyroclasm, he can bring in Absolute Law, but Joe doesn't have the Lightning Bolts. It's probably a card that stays in the sideboard.
Well, our players will be underway here in game number 2 in just a moment. Again, these guys all having a bunch of fun down there. 2 streaming personalities on Magic Online, so you can find Joe at twitch.tv/Oarsman79. You can find Marc at twitch.tv/Bavra_ as well. So these guys love to battle, and for Marc, a European player coming over here, destroying this tournament with Death and Taxes, likely had a lot of fun at Grand Prix New Jersey. You see Philip Schoenegger behind Joe, top 4 at Grand Prix New Jersey with Miracles, an expert of that archetype. That's why he's sitting behind Joe, trying to learn from him maybe a little bit too about why Joe plays Vendilion Clicks where Philip doesn't. You know,
right? Certainly gave him some outs there against cards like that, the Aether Vial there. I mean, unfortunately, Marc had 2 Flicker Wisps.
Yeah.
But good against Stoneforge Mystic as well.
Joe looks like he may mulligan here.
Certainly is thinking about it.
Says he's going to keep. I think.
It's a close one for him.
It's the big bluff. It does not look happy about his hand at all. Jeez.
And it's going to hang on to it, so we'll see what was going on in just a second here.
No top, that's for sure. Vial or Mother? Mother.
Joe, much more okay with that than with the turn 1 Aether Vial.
Yeah.
Do see, all right, should make you real happy. We do see Baneslayer Angel in the opener, maybe even 2 Baneslayer Angel in the opener.
That's a hand. Now that's a hand.
What if? So this is actually something which is kind of funny. So I said, like, you know, could Obs on midrange beat Death and Taxes? And what Joe's going to do is he's going to kind of do an impression of a lot of standard decks where he's just going to, I think, make some lands and drop some Baneslayers. And I wasn't kidding when I said these mid-range strategies are very difficult for Death and Taxes to deal with. You know, there are situations where a standard deck could maybe beat Death and Taxes.
No, I agree. Konig going to search up Sword and Fire and Ice again. I love his weapon of choice, the Stoneforge Mystic, in this matchup. A lot of players would just immediately go for Batterskull, but I'm just not a big fan of that card in this matchup. Sword makes every single card a threat due to its equip cost. And GT is fine, but you know, Sword has the ability to just run away with the game, as we saw in the last one.
So here's the thing. Sword hits harder than Batterskull does. You can't... Sure, Batterskull comes with a token, but if you think about the way that Joe answers Marc's creatures, it's not with pinpoint removal, especially not with Mother of Runes in play. It's with Terminus. And in that situation, Marc's not going to be able to rebuy the Batterskull and make another creature. Instead, he just wants to hit hard and draw more cards. Sword of Fire and Ice is much better at that.
Konig will draw. It's a Wasteland. This is a Vial. A little late to the party, but better late than never.
Yeah, still good enough in the matchup that he's probably pretty happy to have one on turn 3. You do see a Pithing Needle in Joe's hand, so if it becomes too much of a problem, he can get rid of the Aether Vial. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, there may be a trio of Baneslayer Angels in Joe's hand.
Well, he's only got 2 in his sideboard.
Okay, so it's only 2.
There
so
can't,
not
there
right,
can't be a
be
third
3.
one.
There's at least one. Possibly both.
He's going to search up a basic Plains here.
And how many swords has Marc kept in? Remember, he does know that Joe has Baneslayer in his sideboard.
He also knows Joe's had, you know, a card like 3 copies of Dealing Click and Defensor, so I imagine he's kept in some number of the removal spell. Here's a Brainstorm. So 2 cards are going to have to go back here, and maybe we'll see an Arid Mesa get sacrificed. Maybe we don't. There is 2 copies of Terminus there, so those are interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, he has Pyroclasm in his hand, can put a Terminus on top of his deck. And here's what we said, Terminus can be a tough card.
Yeah, he's going to activate Stoneforge now. Make sure there's no click shenanigans, just like last game. Nice, says go ahead. Do your worst. Your worst is Terminus, yep.
And Konig, you saw expecting that, just reached for both his creatures before Joe even drew.
Yep. I mean, just watching Marc play right now, and a little bit earlier, it's not surprised he's undefeated.
Joe successfully building up to 5 with just basics. Has to decide if he wants to Needle here. He has Needle, Pyroclasm. Looks like Scalding Tarn and Karakas.
Yep, shut down the sword.
Choice there. So he had a choice between Sword and Aether Vial. Went with the Sword there.
Yeah, Vial's just a little slow this game, you know? It's just at 1 right now. Next turn it'll go to 2. It's just a little slow here. There's a port. That'll mess up the plan a little bit, I think.
It will cost Joe a turn if Marc kind of leaves up 2 mana.
Yeah.
Could you see Thalia among the threats in Marc's hand?
Yep.
See if that one gets to stick. Marc doesn't have to spend too much of his mana. He can use most of his time using things like Reshad and Port and Wasteland thanks to Aether Vial.
Looks like maybe he wanted to Wasteland, go after the Arid Mesa, which is clearly a strange play, but if you think your opponent has a good card on top of their deck, it might be a play worth making. But
yeah. One combo he actually can do once his Vial gets up is he can use Reshad and Port to tap Arid Mesa and force Joe to crack it. If Joe doesn't, then they'll become tapped, and then he can Wasteland the Mesa.
Gonna go after a mana here, and Joe's gonna sacrifice his Arid Mesa.
Joe does have land number 6, so as long as Marc doesn't have more copies of Reshad and Port, Joe can still get to Baneslayer mana.
Plains will come in. And it's time to draw one. Joe knew the top card of his deck, so he drew a copy and Entreat the Angels. Maybe one of the poorer draws in his deck at this point.
Well, at least at 5 mana, Entreat the Angels is still... I was going to say at 5 mana, it still makes a 4/4 Thalia. It does make it cost an additional.
Mm-hmm.
Joe just buying time with land drops here.
Okay, there's Tarn. Let's see what this is going to go get. Looks like maybe he's opening the door to the Wasteland. I think he's searching for a Tundra.
He could also get a mountain. He does have a Pyroclasm in hand.
Okay.
Going on all basics still. And is Thalia enough to force Pyroclasm from Joe?
Looks like the answer is yes. It's a 3-mana Pyroclasm too because of Thalia being in play, so.
Sure.
You're just
Why not?
doing a lot of 1-for-1ing, right?
I mean, when you have Baneslayers, yeah.
That's all you want to do is just make sure you don't die. You cast Baneslayer Angel, and chances are if you do that, you probably win.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Did Marc keep a Swords to Plowshares, and is one in his hand? Because if not, if you didn't play Standard 3 years ago, racing Baneslayer Angel is just not an option.
There's Vial. Fast turn back. Port. Yep, tap a white. Gotta keep you off Baneslayer. Well, can't keep him off that one.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you succeed in keeping him off Baneslayer. However, there's some damage that's been done then.
There's Caracas. Wabam.
There we go. 5/5 flying, first strike, lifelink, protection from demons and dragons.
Oh. Wins a lot of fights too. Vial's up to 3-1.
I remember my favorite thing is right after they printed this card, and it was very good. They printed a demon that comes into play and destroys an angel, and you just thought, oh, well, that's adorable.
Yes, the Halo Hunter.
Right.
Yeah.
He was not very good at his job.
To say the least. That's the biggest flavor fail ever.
It's like the only angel you need to kill is the one angel you can't.
Yeah. What do we got to cast here?
Yeah. How is Marc going to deal with this 5/5?
I'll put you to the ultimate test. That's the thing.
I mean, it's just bigger than everything Marc has.
Take care of Caracas.
And Baneslayer doing number. He has Bramaz. He has a lot of great creatures, but, you know, once again, it's very hard to race Baneslayer. It's a 10-point life swing every turn.
Yeah, we'll see if Stoneforge resolves and if he can search or not.
Marc will be able to get his creatures out pretty quickly. You see him casting Stoneforge here. He can Vial in Bramaz.
No search. Just pass. Draw a card. He has Batterskull in his hand and GT might be out of his deck.
Batterskull, yep. Batterskull is in his hand, and it would make sense that Chite is not here.
Yeah, there's the attack. 5-point life swing. Put you to 15, myself up to 22. And now it might be Jace time. Yep. The Mind Sculptor.
There you have him. And we've gotten to a point that's getting late in the game that Joe's Haymakers are all starting to land.
Well, this is actually kind of interesting because, like, Joe's going to brainstorm here, and Marc actually has the ability, depending on what Joe finds, right? But Marc has really, like, if he rips the swords, it's like Swords your Baneslayer, kill your Jace. Now I'm perfectly fine.
Right. Joe's found a replacement Jace, but even then, Marc would be have so much on the board that it would probably still be advantage for him.
Yeah, because In's going to come from us. Vials are going to be at 3 and 2. He's got a port to mess with the white mana for Entreat if he chooses to. And again, if he can find a Source of Plowshares, he can kill the Baneslayer Angel, and then he's fine.
At the very least, Jace is going to take an attack here from Bramaz.
And the token's going to come in.
Now, the token can attack a target different than Jace.
Yep. Taking a look at the new Jeff Foster cat token that has Vigilance, one of the judge rewards for Star City games. So Jace is going to bite the dust. Damage is going to come through straight to Joe. We'll see if Marc is crafty enough here, as there's a Flagstones, to shut down the white source, because I believe on top of Joe's deck is a copy of Entreat the Angels. And if that resolves for, you know, a large amount, then the game's probably over.
Yeah, Marc could Cataclysm, I suppose, in that situation, but that's about it for sweepers on his side.
Batterskull's going to come into play.
Yeah. He does need to port there. Batterskull is one way to race Baneslayer Angel.
Yep. There's a Germ token. Pass the turn back. What are we tapping?
Source
Very
for the
smart.
white source.
Entreat was the draw. It doesn't fall for that trick.
If you're Joe, do you continue to attack? You're only getting in 1 damage, so the answer is probably no right now.
Yeah, the other card in Joe's hand, he's got a Terminus and a Jace, so he could put Terminus back on top of the deck if he wants to, but I mean, I wouldn't be feeling great if I was in Joe's position right now, even though I have a Baneslayer Angel and I'm playing another Mythic Rare in Jace.
Well, as long as Joe can brainstorm into another white source here, things are probably great.
Yeah.
You can get that white source, play it this turn, put Entreat on top. Life's good.
We're going to go on Summoning. Buy Germ Token.
Joe, with a different approach altogether, is going to get rid of the Germ Token. And then pass.
Yep. This is a huge turn if you find swords. Like,
Well, I'm interested, right? Because if Marc gets a 5th land, Marc can actually just move the Batterskull over to Bramaz.
but Joe might be fine with that, right? Because then you're not tapping his lands, and then he can, hardcast a Terminus, which he can't do now. So you might be leading him into that play. Yeah, there's the 5th land. Yep.
A wasteland added there, but Marc's going to make that play exactly. One way to get through a Baneslayer is to just make a larger creature.
I do want to see how he's going to attack, which is this. Because he's got to get Jace off the board. He has to get Jace off the board.
So all 3 creatures at Jace would take down Jace.
I think that's super necessary. Because if he just says like Bramaz, attack your Jace, and like the cat token attack your Jace, and doesn't kill it, I think that's bad news.
It looks like it may have gone at Joe, actually.
Nah.
No,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
just
gotta go.
there you
Yeah,
go. All right.
it's gotta go.
So it looks like Baneslayer blocks a cat token.
Yeah.
Jace takes all the rest of it.
Yep. See, now the window's open for Joe to, cast Terminus and clean this board up, but
even then, it's not apparent that Joe's ahead. He doesn't have a Jace or something like that.
ooh, entreats for 4.
And that was the play all along, is that Joe actually just had a 2nd entreat.
Gotcha.
And originally I thought it was fishy. I was thinking, well, why didn't Joe brainstorm there? It seems like that's what he really needs to do. Joe, 1 step ahead, had a 2nd entreat.
Nice, comfortable attacking too. Get you for 5. Gain some life, deal you some damage. Now Marc, and see, the only thing is Marc was sandbagging a creature. I think Marc was expecting him to Terminus, and he actually has a copy of Mirror Crusader in his hand. He would have been able to go, okay, everything's dead. Violent Mirror Crusader, equip the Batterskull. Hi-ya. That's not the case anymore. There's the Crusader. That's the last card in his hand.
Pretty good army here. Crusader, obviously great with Batterskull, but can it swing through all these Angel tokens? Remains to be seen. It can take down a lot of them. 3 to be exact.
I'm really starting to, slowly but surely I'm starting to come around to Death and Taxes.
Oh, so many. I mean, one of your first decks actually was White Weenie, right? Kithkin was right up your alley.
But it's just like, this deck is miles better than Kithkin, obviously, because, it's a legacy deck. But it's just, to be able to slog through, like, Terminus, 2 Jaces, a Baneslayer Angel.
And an Entreat.
Yeah, which, like, if you cast any one of those cards against Kithkin, you're just dead or whatever. Like, this deck is way better than I think it is. Crusader's holding Batterskull. It's an attack here for, it's a 6/6 double striker with lifelink and all that jazz. So now we're in, like, a very unique racing situation.
And so Joe could have traded 3 Angels for that, but it looks like he's not going to.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to.
He doesn't want to just yet because he doesn't have to. I think if he can just find a removal spell instead for the Mirrored Crusader, it's a much better situation than trading most of his board for it. He'd be so far ahead after that. Wear Tear for Batterskull would work. It's a Swords for Crusader. So eventually, he will have to block it. The race is no longer in his favor while that attack's happening.
Yeah.
See just how he decides to attack. Remember, Joe does have Terminus in hand. It's very hard, though, to want a Terminus right after you made 16 power.
He's getting a little aggressive now. Looks like a bunch of Angels are attacking, including Baneslayers. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17.
So here's actually a line that Joe can take, which is pretty heads up. He can swing for 17. He can just chump Mirrored Crusader with the Angel. Yeah, Marc will gain 6. He'll go to, well, the unfortunate number is 18. And Joe will take a lot of damage, but that's probably fine. Joe then can swing back for another 17. Or maybe just in that situation, a 12. You know, he can just chump and race, because if you chump Mirran Crusader, Marc only gains 6 instead of the usual 12.
Okay.
And then if Marc does something to change the equation, maybe the race doesn't work anymore, well, you have Terminus to fall back on.
Yeah, he's always got the reset button, which is really nice. The reset button is a little dangerous, obviously, because Marc can just say, okay, I'll start the advantage first by filing something in, but he always does have that option.
Yeah, Marc can also port Joe off second white, so the Terminus option is fragile.
Yeah.
But the race and chump plan, as it stands now, should work.
Decisions here for Konig. Don't have a great look at his hand. He's reaching for some other creatures, which I do like that part of this.
Yep. Just everybody swinging on Marc's side.
Yep.
And once Marc realizes Joe's strategy, this is a great attack.
2 cards.
See Joe's cards. Entreat, Terminus, and what looks like a Spell Pierce.
The funny thing, I guess I was going to say the funny thing here is, you know, if Marc ever draws a copy of Cataclysm, my oh my, is that a disaster?
So it's actually not going to race and jump. He's going to just kill off the Brahmas and let Marc gain another 12.
Yep, there's a 3rd vial. And Mother of Runes, empty-handed. Kick it back.
Well, this is dangerous. Mother of Runes being able to give Mirran Crusader protection from white.
Yep.
May force Joe's hand, and Marc's going to tap Joe's white mana, and he may be stuck here. He can life gain up to 13, but he will. I'm not sure he has enough blockers.
Yeah, saw Joe Flair type house there a minute. Maybe he was supposed to chump like you mentioned. Here comes. Nope.
Well, he's in a tough spot now that he didn't.
Yep. In.
Goes up to 13. His draw was Force of Will. That one's not going to help very much.
No, not with all those vials out there.
No, he's going to need another white mana source next turn, or Swords to Plowshares. I think he can survive this turn. He can. It's only 12 damage off the Mirran Crusader, but after that, he's down to 1 top deck.
There actually are some cards that Marc can draw here to get the job done, but I think what he's got on the board is actually pretty good. There's an attack again for 12.
That puts Joe to 1. And this could be it. Some excellent maneuvering here over on Marc's side.
Another port's good.
Another port's excellent.
Yeah.
This takes away all of Joe's outs, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Because he gets to
Terminus.
tap all of his white mana.
Yeah.
The other cards generally don't matter. I don't know if he's got another Jace to draw to, but I don't think it matters. Joe draws a Tundra.
There's the white source, but he needed it last turn.
Yeah, there's that. Brings Terminus forward in his hand, but yeah, that's going to do it.
There
Marc
you have
Konig's going
it.
to win this match here over Joe Lossett, 2-0. And for our #1 overall seed with Death and Taxes, he is your Legacy Open champion, and his friends are happy about it here in Richmond.
And a well-played second game there. If you want to see a primer on Death and Taxes in the Miracles matchup, you need to turn to that game.
Yeah, I don't use the words perfect very much as far as play is concerned because Magic is such a hard game. It's very difficult to ever play a perfect game, obviously. But if you dial it back and you watch that match again, that's a masterclass not to play Death and Taxes.
Yeah, well, Joe had so many options here. You realize, so Joe resolves Baneslayer Angel, Entreat for 4 Angels, has Terminus, 1 Terminus he resolves. He has a second Terminus in his hand, and Marc gets that game. And it's not that, and it's just slight edges at every step, you know. There's no one point at which you really say, oh, okay, this was the back-breaking play.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's how you play that deck. And, I mean, surprise, surprise, my prediction is wrong about Death and Taxes again. This is just maybe a running thing here at SCG Live, but it's just like, this is just how it's done. This is how it is done every single time. And, you would think that Miracles is a bad matchup, but to Marc's credit, I imagine he has played this matchup a lot because, well, look at the people he's with.
Right, half of his playtest group here is on Miracles, and